From NJ.com, this is Talk is Cheap, a New York Giants podcast. We're talking Big Blue football all year round.
Welcome on in, Giants fans, to episode 149 of the Talk is Cheap podcast, an NJ Advanced Media production on the Giants. I'm Ryan Dunleavy, and I'm joined by my friend and colleague, Steve Politi, who is filling in for Matt Lombardo, the usual co-host of this show, while Matt returns home to his roots to cover the Eagles' playoff run. We'd appreciate any 5-star reviews for this podcast, which you can find on iTunes, SoundCloud, Stitcher, iHeartRadio, Google Play, Spreaker, and of course, NJ.com. Steve, Eli Manning, talk.
Wow. That's an open-ended question, right? I need more information. And that's really the answer. Like, I need more information. Like, what's going on?
That's it.
I wrote it the day of Gettleman's press conference. I'm very rarely, surprised anymore, but just how that all came down between, what Dave Gettleman said that day and his kind of non-answer, non-committal approach to Eli Manning, and then what Eli said later on that day on the radio. I was a little surprised. I just assumed we were barreling toward a 2019, Eli part 16 here of his career. And there's just enough doubt in my mind now that I wonder if that's the case.
Yeah, I think there's enough doubt in Eli Manning's mind, which I thought was really fascinating listening to him on WFAN, his paid radio spot. He seems to want to play, and it almost seems like the Giants have all the leverage right now. Do you agree with that? It almost seems like the Giants get to tell Eli Manning whether he's welcome back to be the first player ever to play 16 seasons with them, whereas I kind of thought that Eli Manning I kind of thought Eli Manning ran the Giants, to be honest with you.
You're right. And I agree with you. They do have the cards, and that's in large part because of who Eli Manning is. I mean, he's kind of made it very clear that he doesn't want to play someplace else. I don't, if they want him back, there's no danger really of, if they play hardball, ask him to cut his pay or whatever, he's not going to, there's no indication he's going to uproot his life and go to Jacksonville or Miami or someplace, that needs a quarterback. And I think Giants also know there's probably not much of a market for him. So they've got those two things on their side. That said, someone's got to play quarterback next year for the Giants, and they right now do not have another option. So Eli does have that part. If he were to retire tomorrow, it would certainly be an interesting scramble to see what the team comes up with.
You and I have had this debate in person and text. You just said it, so I'm going to interrupt. There's not much of a market for Eli Manning. Have you seen some of the quarterbacks who play in the NFL? Look, I'll put aside the fact, and Eli Manning's having a son. He's going to have 4 little children who he wants to raise in Jersey. Apparently his family jokes with him all the time about how he's been New Jersey-tized and this is his home. He's a northerner now and whatnot. But if he doesn't want to play somewhere else, that's fine. But you're going to tell me no one else would want Eli Manning? I mean, have you seen this is the same league where Nathan Peterman starts games, Mark Sanchez and Josh Johnson just started games. I mean, look at the quarterbacks the Giants beat this year. It's a who's who of should not be starting in the NFL. And Eli Manning, no one's going to call him if he's available. I find that hard to believe.
Well, he's 38 and he is a bottom third quarterback now. And I know Giants fans go crazy when you say things like that, but it's a passing league. He's extremely immobile. He's watched the last season. I know he had his best passing percentage season somehow, but we watched the last game against the Cowboys. How many short throws he missed? He gets sacked a lot. He turns the ball over a lot. I don't know. I mean, my feeling is though that if you're going to bring him in as a quarterback, you've got to be a team that is built to win now, that you need a game manager who can be plugged in, who can, bring them over the edge. Why would a team like Jacksonville? If you're building toward the future, why would you take Eli Manning? That's the question I would have right now for most of the teams that need a quarterback. What benefit is it for the Washington Redskins to have to sign a 38-year-old Eli Manning at this point?
So that the Redskins, who were in first place when Alex Smith got injured, clearly have a team that's capable of winning this division. So why not sign Eli Manning? Why start over with Drew Lock or somebody when Adrian Peterson's not getting any younger? Your defense isn't getting any younger. Why not go with the guy who maybe can bridge the gap for you the way, Joe Flacco is going to bridge the gap for somebody as soon as next year? I don't know.
Right.
I mean, to me, if you're a team that's close, maybe like the Jaguars were last year or like the Redskins might be, I don't know. I would call Eli Manning. I would.
Yeah, I mean, you're right. You're right in saying he's an upgrade, obviously, over a Mark Sanchez or Colt McCoy or whatever. But I mean, the other part of it is who would you rather have? If you're the Redskins, you had a chance to sign a free agent quarterback. Would you take Eli Manning, or would you take Nick Foles, or would you take Teddy Bridgewater? Which of the quarterbacks on the market would you roll the dice on? That's another good. Would he be the top right now? If the Giants cut him tomorrow, would he be the top quarterback on the market?
He'd be the top quarterback on the market right now, tomorrow. But then if you add Nick Foles to the market, I'd rather have Nick Foles. Caveat being you might have to trade for Nick Foles, whereas you wouldn't have to give anything up for him. I'd rather have Eli Manning right now than would I rather have him than Joe Flacco? I think I probably would. I did.
Flacco 6 years younger, isn't he?
Yeah, but I don't know that. Yeah, he's 4 years younger. I think 4 years younger. They've had remarkably similar careers. Joe Flacco actually has more playoff wins than Eli Manning, which I thought was surprising.
How about that?
Did a pretty thorough breakdown on their careers. Their career averages are strikingly similar. They're pretty much the same guy, with Eli having one more Super Bowl. And then Teddy Bridgewater's the wild card because he's so much younger, but hasn't really played in so long. I mean, we're talking one start in 3 years or something like that. So he's kind of the wild card to this whole thing. And he wasn't great before he got injured. He was a first-round pick, but he wasn't great.
Right.
So he's really the wild card in this whole thing. Let me ask you this, Steve. Fill in the blank. The longer this goes on, the more likely blank happens. And March 18th of this year, the Giants owe Eli Manning a $5 million roster bonus. The Giants aren't exactly smart with money, but you would think that's some sort of some sort of hard deadline. March 18th, they're not going to pay him $5 million and cut him after that. So the longer this goes till March, the more likely blank happens.
I think it's the more likely Eli Manning is your starting quarterback when training camp begins. I think that's the most likely scenario. If they're going to bring in, I went through all the different scenarios right now.
You created like your own FanDuel odds kind of thing.
I did. If only you could gamble on these things.
StevePoliti.ag.
That's going to be my second career when this So I think it's highly unlikely. I give it a 1% chance that he would play someplace else. So I'm going to rule that out. I also think it's highly unlikely the Giants will just cut him. I just don't think that's how it's going to work out with Eli Manning, 2-time Super Bowl MVP. So then you're looking into, okay, he's going to be on the roster. Are they going to renegotiate the contract with him? I think that's a possible scenario where they, they don't want that $23 million, whatever, $17 million cap hit. They would do something to get some relief considering all the needs they have on this roster right now. So that's a scenario. I think that would be the most likely thing. And then you wonder, okay, you can't go, at least I don't think the Giants, based on what Dave Gettleman said, I don't think they can go, or they're planning to go into another season with Alex Tanney and Kyle Lauletta, two guys who have no chance of playing. They're not going to go into another season where that is the quarterback room. So then what's the most likely scenario to add a quarterback? And I still think it is bringing in a veteran guy like Bridgewater, or finding someone who is more than a stopgap, someone who can actually compete for the job. Because, and this is obviously going to be the next topic we're going to talk about, I still think it's going to be very hard for them to draft his successor at number 6.
Yeah, there we go. That's what they call a segue in this business.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, you don't have to be radio trained like us to understand a segue. So number 6, the news, obviously big news this week, is Dwayne Haskins, Ohio State's quarterback for one season, New Jersey native, grew up in Highland Park. Has declared for the NFL draft. And the Giants are sitting there at number 6. And the top 3 teams in the NFL draft definitely have their quarterback of the future, with the Cardinals and Josh Rosen, the 49ers and Jimmy Garoppolo, and the Jets and Sam Darnold, who the Giants passed on last year. And no, I cannot mention him without saying that afterwards. So
it's contractually an obligation.
It's a contractual obligation, yes. So the Raiders at number 4 could be the wild card if they move on from Derek Carr. The Buccaneers at number 5 could be a wild card if they move on from Jameis Winston. But really, we're talking about the Giants are the first team that could really need a quarterback. Will Haskins slip to 6? That rarely happens. The top quarterback usually goes within the first 3 picks. So then somebody's going to trade up. Will that be the Giants? Will that be the Broncos? Will that be the Jaguars? Will that be the Dolphins? Will that be the Redskins? Blah, blah, blah. Steve, are they going to get Haskins at number 6?
No, I don't think so. And it's funny because, as much as and believe me, I've only written it 432 times that the Giants should have taken Sam Darnold, and then it became much harder to have that position based on how great Saquon Barkley was. But still, Saquon Barkley did, there's a reason why quarterbacks are valued so highly. They had one of the 3 best running backs in the league and still went 5-11, the Giants. So that's the point. And there's we can talk about this again for another podcast. But so my point, but it would be interesting if they did get him at number 6. Then the Giants have won this, right? They got the running back they needed, the best running back in the draft, the player they want, and they got the quarterback of the future the next year. So it would kind of end the debate no matter what Sam Darnold does. I just don't think it's going to happen at 6. It's just, history tells you that this kid, and I get a chance to watch him in Ohio State. You watch him on TV, you see what he can do, and you just feel like he's got such a high ceiling, the entire skill set, mobile, strong arm, accurate. I mean, I think he's going to become, when they go through the combine, when they go through the process, that someone's going to fall in love with him and will trade up to get him. And that's just always what happens. If it's not, one of the teams you mentioned ahead of the Giants, that someone's going to make that move. And from what we've seen from Dave Gettleman, he's not inclined to be the guy who does that. There's very little in his draft history to suggest that he's going to be the one to trade up to mortgage assets and to make a move like that. And based on his own, what he says about drafts overall too, is that he doesn't draft for need, which is, that's a big thing he says all the time too. If you just drafting for need, you're going to make a mistake. So I think it's unlikely that they're going to get this kid.
Do you think they're afraid to draft the next quarterback? Afraid of making a mistake? Afraid of ending up in quarterback purgatory? Do you think they are, from Mara to Gettleman to Shermer, do you think the Giants are afraid to pick a quarterback? We've seen all these quarterbacks. You see how often, like, the Bengals screw up a quarterback or the Browns screw up a quarterback. Or do you think the Giants are afraid? I don't
know if that's the right word. I mean, it's just, Gettleman doesn't strike me as the kind of guy who, he was telling us in his press conference that he was defending moves that are indefensible. Essentially, so he doesn't strike me as the kind of guy who has a lot of fear or indecisiveness is much of a problem for him. So I don't think fear is the right word. I think last year it was a combination of love for Barkley and a little bit of stubbornness and overestimating what Eli Manning still left in the tank. This time around, that would, if they're scared to do it, they shouldn't be in the business. I mean, what do you think?
Yeah, no, I think there's some fear there. I really do. I think there's and look, that's a scary word because, like you said, if you're afraid, you shouldn't be in the business. But I do think there's some fear there. I mean, Gettleman, everywhere he's worked, the quarterback has been there before he got there. Mm-hmm. John Elway with the Broncos, or Cam Newton with the Panthers, or go back 20 years or 30 years to Jim Kelly with the Bills. I mean, Eli Manning with the Giants. The Giants drafted him after Gettleman arrived, but obviously he wasn't calling the shots then. So I do think there might be a sense of like, he's a 67 or 68-year-old general manager. He made it clear last year that he wants to win now. He doesn't want to do a huge rebuild. He always talks about walking the tightrope between setting up the Giants for the future and trying to win now. It's a win now business, right? We saw Steve Wilkes got fired after one season. Yeah. I mean, it's a win now business. So do I think that he's afraid. I mean, I think he is very aware. Let's put it wary. How about that? How about wary instead of the word afraid? I think he's very wary of the mistake, very aware of the ramifications that a mistake could make, and that, you know, on the risk reward, right? We all do this in life, whether it's should I have this steak for dinner, or
Right.
should my family go to the shore or take a trip to Cabo? We all do the risk reward pro con list, and I think Gettleman always, when he does it, comes up with more cons than pros to drafting him.
Well, you could make the argument certainly that he did take the one player he knew was most likely to make him look good right away.
Correct.
You know,
Correct.
There was no doubt. No one came out of that draft saying that Saquon Barkley wasn't going to be a great player. It was kind of the one known in the entire thing. So yeah, and each one of those quarterbacks last year, and this was a quarterback class everyone agreed was great, like considered to be a great one. And still, you know, there were questions about Mayfield. There were questions about Darnold. There's still questions about Josh Allen and that entire class. So yeah, I mean, certainly, and that'll be the case this time. In fact, there were more questions, you know, for as talented as Haskins is. And I get it. I mean, believe me, I love it. Although I have a trouble evaluating college players because I see them against Rutgers and everyone looks really good. Like this is an aside, but I made my first legal bet on Buffalo in their bowl game because I saw Buffalo up like 35-6 with an NFL quarterback, an NFL receiver. I'm like, oh my God, Buffalo's they're legitimately great. They're only 2.5-point favorites over Troy. Well, Troy curb stomped them, of course, because this is not a good thing. You shouldn't base everything on one game against Rutgers. Anyway, that's an aside. But
you're a sucker. You're a sucker. You're a sucker. That's it. You're a sucker.
So I think Haskins is really good based on. But I did watch him against real opponents too, good opponents too.
Yeah.
But still, he's not as proven as. I mean, he's certainly not as Baker Mayfield. He's not as proven as Darnold. No. So I mean, there's a lot of questions there too. And below him, and this is where we get into if the Giants decide they do want to draft a quarterback and can't get Haskins, it's going to be interesting to see what happens to a Daniel Jones and what happens to a Drew Lock.
Do not do it.
Well,
do not.
Yeah, I mean that's a group.
Do not.
Are those guys there? I mean, later?
Yeah, do not do it. I will be pulling my hair out, screaming. I mean, anybody who was in the press room, Steve, can tell you that I did this last year. I was in the press room screaming when the Giants picked Kyle Lauletta last year. You have Davis Webb. You had Davis Webb. You picked Davis Webb in the 3rd round.
Yeah.
And then you picked Kyle Lauletta in the 4th round. So I wrote the day of the draft, I should have believed myself that there was no way they could go into the regular season with Eli Manning and 2 guys who had never taken a regular season snap. I wrote it, and then I talked myself out of it over the next 4 months. And then sure enough, we were all surprised on cutdown day when Davis Webb got cut, because you can't go into the season with 2 guys who have never taken a snap. So if you're going to pick Daniel Jones or Indiana Jones, I don't care. You cannot pick another mid-round quarterback.
Mid-round. It'll be a late first round. I mean, Drew Lock could be a first-round pick. I mean, the guy was an excellent.
So then you'd have to trade up. From
trade back
30, or trade back. Yeah, well, he ain't trading back. Dave Gettleman's not going to trade. You'd have to trade up from early second round to late first round to get. Sure, I guess that fine. If you're telling me Drew Lock in the late first round, fine. But Ryan Finley or Will Greer or somebody in the second round, stop. Either go all in or go all out. Do not stop with the Davis Webbs and the Kyle Laulettas. Either pick your guy or do not pick your guy. To pick on a team, sorry, you got me going now. On a team that has no depth. I mean, no depth. I mean, they are trotting out undrafted free agents left and right. On a team with no depth, to waste another mid-round pick. How much would you like to see instead of Davis Webb? How would you like to see that 3rd round pick be used on a free safety to play next to Landon Collins instead of Curtis Riley? How instead of Kyle Lauletta, if you're already giving up on Kyle Lauletta, like it seems like the Giants have after 5 passes, how would you have liked to see a right tackle so that Eric Flowers didn't have to start the season at right tackle and then go to Chad Wheeler, who tries hard? That's about the nicest thing I can say. how would you like those two guys, a free safety and a right tackle? Stop picking quarterbacks in the middle of the rounds when you can get value starters. Stop it. Pick a guy, pick Haskins, pick Darnold, pick Tua Tagovailoa next year. Stop picking mid-round quarterbacks.
That's been the discussion the entire time with the quarterback. It's it's a lottery pick to get a guy in the late rounds. It really is. It's just you might get lucky, but you don't get lucky often. So that's very good. No. But I will say this, the bigger point: the Giants are going to have 11 draft picks. So that's that. If they can't hit on some depth players this year, or if they can't use, I know a lot of them, 9 of them are third-day picks. I get it. But if they can't use some of them to make a move, to move up, to get someone, this seems like the kind of draft where, that this team should be well-positioned, should be thinking about moving. It is an opportunity there. So, I'm not, again, I don't think you should pick someone again in the 4th round and cross your fingers. But if one of the other quarterbacks there late in the 1st round, I don't know. Be interesting.
Late in the 1st round, I'll give you. Look, they have 3 now, and the reason for anybody who missed it this week, Giants are projected by the overthecap.com, which is excellent at this, to get 2 more compensation picks based on free agency last year. In other words, the Giants did poorly in free agency, so here's 2 draft picks to make up for it. Supposed to get a 4th rounder and a 5th rounder, so that would leave them with 3 4th rounders and 3 5th rounders. They have no 3rd rounder. You got to think Gettleman's going to package some of those 6 picks in the 4th and 5th rounds to get back into the 3rd round. I would assume I would mark that down as almost a definite. So he'll get in the 3rd round. He'll end up with, a 1st, a 2nd, a 3rd. And then, like you said, maybe they move up from 38 overall into 30, like the Ravens did this year to get Lamar Jackson. There's value, Steve. We should mention this. There's value in picking a quarterback late in the 1st round versus the 2nd round because it comes with a 5th-year contractual option. So you get a 5th year of control if you pick a quarterback 32nd overall versus 33rd overall. It's the reason Landon Collins is a free agent right now. The Giants have to face this decision a year quicker than they should because Landon Collins was the 1st pick of the 2nd round and not the last pick of the 1st round. So, 11 picks. They obviously need to both, what is their biggest need? For me, it's offensive tackle, right tackle. What do you think their biggest need is? Putting quarterback aside.
Right. Obviously, quarterback. But after that, I totally agree. There's got to be upgrading the offensive line. If that's 1A, then 1B is a pass rusher. And if that's
or 3,
right, or 3. And this is a great draft. And that's another reason why I think, well, maybe they won't take a quarterback. This is a great draft for defensive linemen by all accounts. And then if you're going to go 1C, I'm going to put that, safety help. I just think that the Giants lost games this year because of that. Usually you don't think about that, but this season could have been a lot different if Curtis Riley could take a good angle on a long play. It's funny when it comes down to something as simple as that, but there are a couple of games where that made just about all the difference. So those would be my 3 big needs. You, where else do you see it?
Yeah, I think you hit on the 3 big ones. Safety, I'll expand safety to corner 2 to secondary as a whole. We don't know if Norris Jenkins will be back or if he'll be a salary cap casualty.
What do you do with Norris Jenkins? That's kind of like a fascinating question because I thought just for sure he was a goner, but Shermer likes him and the money they're paying him isn't crazy. I mean, what do you think?
Well, you know what, Steve? I'm going to throw a curveball at you, but it's a familiar curveball. It's like a hanging curveball. We did not discuss this, but anybody who has followed Steve and I's podcast history knows we like to play a little game called True or False. I'm going to throw some true or false at Steve. He gives me a 1-word answer. Then we'll come back and discuss what's interesting. I'll answer as well.
I like being on the other side of this too. It's good.
Yes. I'll answer as well, though. True or false? Janoris Jenkins is on the Giants 2019 Game 1, Week 1 roster.
I've gone 180 on this. I think it's true.
I agree. I think it's true. Olivier Vernon is on the Giants 2018 Game 1.
That one I think is false.
I agree. I think that's false too. Eli Manning is on the Giants 2018 Game 1 roster.
True.
I agree. I think that's true. Odell Beckham is on the Giants 2009. I keep saying 18. I think 2019 Game 1 roster.
True. Absolutely. Where are they gonna? I mean, come on.
Yeah, I say true. I say true. I say true.
How many trades? This is what our friend Matt wrote.
Hold on. We'll get there in a
okay.
sec. The Giants finished the season with this starting offensive line, or if everybody healthy, it was Nate Solder, Will Hernandez, Spencer Pulley, Jamon Brown, and Chad Wheeler. 3 of those guys will be in the Game 1 starting lineup next year.
Oh, wow. 3 is the right number to ask. Obviously 2, they'll center will be different and the right tackle will be different, I think. So I'm going to go true-ish, right? True.
So that would be, so yes, you would say true. So you're saying Jamon Brown returns as right guard.
Yeah. And obviously, like the guy's name, I can't pronounce it, who was injured early on as center would
John Halapio.
Halapio will be back. And they'd have to find someone else to play right tackle. That would be my guess.
I'm going to say false. I'm going to say we're going to disagree. I'm going to say it's 2 guys are back and they have 3 new starters, just Hernandez and Solder.
Okay.
So as starters, I could see Spencer Pulley back on the team. I just don't see him as a starter. So I could see Chad Wheeler on the team. I don't see him as a starter. Do you want to throw any true false at me?
No, true or false? The Giants win 8 games next year.
Ooh. True.
You think they're going to win 8, so they'll be in position for true or false. They'll be in a position for a playoff, competing for playoffs next year.
They'll be competing for playoffs. True. True or false? The Giants win 9 games next year.
False. No, I don't think.
False. Okay.
I think 8 might be pushing it. To be honest,
I give them. I think the Giants are an 8-8 next year. That's kind of that. They upgrade the defense. True or false? Mike Shula and James Betcher are the 2019 offensive and defensive coordinators.
True. I don't think Shermer's the kind of guy that's going to shake it up for the sake of shaking it up.
I say false. I say Betcher's back. Shula's
who replaces Shula?
Somebody who is more familiar with Shermer. If Kevin Stefanski does not get a head coaching job with the Browns, which could happen any minute, if somebody else from his Eagles or Vikings background who shakes free, that would be my guess. Let's revisit some of these. Janoris Jenkins. I think he's back because I think the way the NFL is played today, you need a top cornerback. And is Janoris Jenkins maybe a little overpaid? I think his cap hits $14 million. He might be a little overpaid, but you're not finding anybody. You're not taking on $7 million of dead money and then finding anybody who can play as well as he does for under $7 million. So now you're talking about spending more than 14. Say you find somebody who's better for 10. Well, $7 million dead for Jenkins plus $10 million for the next guy, that's $17 million. I just think from a financial standpoint, I think Janoris Jenkins is back because I don't think you can get anybody to play as well as he does.
I just don't think he's a top corner. You said, can you get anybody at a better price? Maybe not, but I don't know. He had some moments, but a top corner is a consistent player, and he was not a consistent player. I mean, that's.
Yep, consistency is definitely his issue. I saw him shut down Michael Thomas of the Saints, who was the first team All-Pro, and then I saw him give up touchdown passes to guys whose names I can't even, Marvin Jones or Marvin Hall or something on the Falcons. I mean, definitely wildly inconsistent, but Giants don't really have it. I mean, this is part of trading Eli Apple, having BW Webb as a free agent. They don't really have another corner. They have a lot invested in Sam Beal, who was a supplementary draft pick, the reason they don't have a third rounder in the 2019 NFL draft, and he practiced once and got injured. Right. Literally his first NFL
What is this fun? That's a great question. We have not heard a lot about him. What is your sense? And what is he going to be back in the starting lineup when the season begins?
Yeah, I think he will. But I mean, I think Sam Beal told me he'll be ready for like the mini camps and OTAs and that kind of stuff. So I'll have a whole season of practice. He did a lot this season in the meeting rooms with preparing game plans and mental. But again, that only takes you. So it's nice. It's nice, better than doing nothing, but better than eating hot dogs all day. But yeah, that only takes you so far. He needs to get on the practice field. I know a lot of people who know Sam Beal. I know it's just randomly through my college football connections. I know a lot of people who know Sam Beal who swear he's a good fit for the defense the way the Giants want to play it. He's competitive as all heck. He'll be a good NFL player. He'll study. He'll practice hard and whatnot. But he's still going to be a rookie, even if that's the case. So,
indeed.
Odell Beckham, you chuckled.
Yeah, and the point being, Matt Lombardo, our colleague, wrote a column that they should call the 49ers and consider trading him for the number 2 pick, which is one of those, sounds great in theory type things, but players like him, I mean, deals like that they're not very common, It's just, and I get the idea that he is not what a Shermer/Gettleman player, but I mean, he is still extremely talented receiver. It's just hard to imagine giving up on him at this stage. Although, as you pointed out, and your column on him was interesting as well, just about his health issues, you wonder if that is the one thing that's stuck in the back of their minds. All right, well, we're not going to have him for 16 games. If he's going to be out 5 of them, maybe that's incentive to trade him. But it's just hard to imagine pulling off a deal like that. You think it's possible?
Look, I think it's possible. I don't know if the 49ers would do it, but that would be my baseline for the job. You give me the number 2 pick, or we're not even having a discussion, because the number 2 pick theoretically should get you Dwayne Haskins. Could you then lose Dwayne Haskins? Could somebody trade up to 1 and you lose him? Yeah, I guess that would be a real kick in the face. But trading for number 2, assuming Nick Bosa goes to the Cardinals, number 1, trading up to 2 would get you Haskins, and then you could still pick a Rashawn Gary or Quinnen Williams, or you'd still get your pass rusher or your lineman or a Jonah Williams for the offensive line. You'd still get that guy plus Haskins.
Right. And then, and who's the receiver?
But then, exactly. then you're giving
you saw how that worked when the guy.
Correct.
Cody Latter is a nice player. They had some nice guy and some players, but I mean,
correct. You're really handcuffing your Dwayne Haskins by trading Odell Beckham.
I would love to have seen and this is always my thing with, and again, you look at what Eli did, and the numbers are good for him this year, better than they've been in the last few years. But watching those games live, the number of times you look down and you're like, oh my God, Beckham is wide open, and the ball is going to Barkley or to tight end short. It would really, we joke about it and how, just how his personality, Beckham, he's a locker room problem. But I mean, I could see how you'd lose your mind if you're him sometimes. He'd totally lose your mind.
Yeah, look, I mean, there's no way to quantify that, right? There's no stat for somewhere in some analytics there probably is, but I've never seen missed open targets. That's the stat I want, because I think that's what really summarizes Eli Manning's struggles this year, is the amount of guys he didn't see or was reluctant to try to make the throw, who took the safer throw rather than this throw. And that, from our view, our vantage point in the press box, is really the advantage that we have over people watching on TV. They hear a lot of the commentary. They even sometimes get injuries before us, but our eye in the sky view really gives us a great look. It's what they call the all 11 view, where you can really see a play develop, and you can see a guy running open down the middle that Eli Manning just does not see.
Or is not willing to make the throw to him. Well, let me reverse this question to you. If you were the San Francisco 49ers, is that a good deal for you?
Yes, I think so. I have the cap space for him. I have a team I think can win.
He's already 5 years into his career, though. So you're taking number 2 pick. If you got a guy, you get an extra 5 years out of it. That guy.
there's no receiver as unfortunately as the Jets are learning. There's no receiver worthy of that kind of pick. It's a stretch to take the kid from Arizona State that high. There's no receiver there. There's no real receiver in free agency. The Jets and 49ers have the same problem. There's no real receiver to chase that. So if you're trying to win now, and I think the 49ers are, I mean, they signed Jimmy Garoppolo to like $1 zillion contract. You got to give him a weapon. I think if you give him Odell Beckham, who wants to be in California, he hides that. I mean, he wants to be there more than like Snoop Dogg wants to be there.
I don't know if he wants to be in that part of California, big state, but okay. All right. Fair enough.
Yeah.
Closer than here.
Closer to, yes, exactly. So, in warmer weather, yes.
I'd like to be in California. Could the 49ers trade for me? Be good.
Yeah, the San Francisco, what is it? The Chronicle. The Chronicle called. They offered me their columnist for you, but I turned it down. He said he wouldn't do podcasts in a pinch. So I had to turn it down. But, anyway, yes, I think for the 49ers it makes sense. I would take the phone call, but I don't see it happening. But again, what I came back to is for Odell Beckham, I think the new normal is 13, 14 games. I just think that's who he is. Maybe he overexerts himself and leaves him open to injury. Maybe he plays so hard that he can't not get injured. Maybe he doesn't brace himself for tackles. Maybe it's all a bunch of positive things for why he's injury prone. I'm not accusing Odell Beckham being soft. I want to make this perfectly clear. I think he plays as hard as anybody in the NFL, but I think he's injury prone, and that's one of the worst things you can be labeled as in your professional career. I just think he's injury.
It's got to be a factor into this. Absolutely. And I will agree that, I think the Giants saw what they want their offense to be. They want it to be a lot of Saquon Barkley. But it's just a sort of a fascinating dilemma because he is way too talented.
We're approaching, so we'll wrap this up with this, Steve. Year one, Gettleman, Shurmur. I'll take them one at a time. We're approaching Shurmur's 1 year anniversary of his hiring. How do you think they did? I don't know if you want to give them a letter grade or just wrap up for me how you think Gettleman did in his first year, how you think Shurmur did.
I think I'd give them both a C minus. I mean, I don't think you grade them together. I don't think they're that different in what they certainly didn't turn this team around. I mean, you could argue that the roster's in better shape than when Gettleman took over, but that's certainly a low bar to clear. He made a lot of mistakes in free agency. The early approach, I laugh at the idea now where, we're talking about bringing in Jonathan Stewart and this was just to improve the locker room. Really? I mean, just stuff like
$3.5 million.
Yeah, it's a lot of money to the locker room improvement, and the guy wasn't in there for so that it's just stuff like that make you scratch your head. Shurmur, I mean, there's a lot I like about him. I thought I like some of the aggressiveness and some of the fourth down calls, and I thought the offense was certainly better. I mean, there's no arguing; it was definitely better. But there's a side of him too that it was just a little too thin-skinned with the media, a little some in-game head-scratching decisions, and one game we were going with the new NFL math says you got to go for 2 when you're down by 8, and the next game we're just riding a hunch. It's just stuff like just stuff that made you go, wait, well, just a little consistency with that. The defense as much as the offense improved, the defense was terrible. And I know he's not defensive coordinator, but he's head coach. So he gets judged on that. So I mean, there's nothing to make me think that he's going to be the next Bill Parcells and Meadowlands, but certainly nothing to make me think the Giants would do anything but, give him the whistle next year and see what happens.
I'll go a little more polarizing. I give Gettleman a D.
Really?
I think he got caught making changes for the sake of change. No one has been able to explain to me why they cut Andrew Adams and Darian Thompson for Curtis Riley, why they cut Dante Dion for Cameron Moore. like why Evan Brown was on the 53-man roster for 16 games and never took a snap, why they cut Davis Webb. There were a lot of things I thought he made changes just for the sake of. Last year was such a disaster. We have to clean it up. So he made change for the sake of making change, I thought.
He's harsh given that draft, though, isn't it? I mean,
but is it given free agency? Who was his best free agent signing?
Right.
Dollar for dollar. I mean, it was Nate Solder, but dollar for dollar.
Yeah, that's tough.
Was it Michael Thomas? It was probably Michael. Yeah. So as good as he was in the draft, I think is as bad as he was in free agency. So I'll give him a D, and Shurmur, I'll give him a C+. Like I said, I like a lot of the things I saw from Shurmur, mostly how he got the guys to play hard. I liked his play calling. I liked his creativity with the plays. I liked his aggressiveness. I liked the way he ran the locker room. I liked the respect he commands. My number one complaint with him would be his public persona. Just kind of, it can't be questioned on anything. It's not a good look. Why he cares what fans think, or why he cares what Ryan Dunleavy thinks, or any of the media. It's strange. I mean, just have some conviction, stick with it. And when somebody asks you to explain something, just explain it. I mean, whether we agree with you or not, just tell us what you were thinking. Don't act like the idea of the other side of the coin is crazy. There's a reason coins have two sides. So just explain why you picked what you picked. So he has the 10th. This is a stat, Steve. He has the 10th worst career winning percentage of any coach in NFL history.
Ooh.
So yeah,
wow,
yeah. So with at least 50 games, he has 49 right now. So the season opener will be his 50th game. He'll either fall to like tied for the 8th worst, or if they win, he'll go to like 13th worst. Either way, it ain't good, but I do think there's some promise. You can't go solely by career record, especially his stint with the Browns. I do think there's some promise there.
Overall, it was really crazy, and we wrote about this, but you don't think of it this way because there were some dark days in Giants history. But these last two seasons, this franchise has never lost more games in back-to-back seasons. It really is. It's just it's been a tough couple of years.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, they've made the playoffs once in 7 years. That's 1970s Giants football. Yeah, I was not alive in the 1970s, but I've heard that it was
a great time. You could smoke in elevators.
I think you could do that in the 90s.
It was good. It was absolutely. I was alive 7 of those years and remember them fondly.
Yep. So, all right, that's where we're going to leave you guys. Again, any 5-star reviews are much appreciated. That not to say that 1-star reviews are not appreciated, but yeah, that's kind of what I'm saying. iTunes, SoundCloud, Stitcher, iHeartRadio, Google Play, Spreaker, and anywhere else you find podcasts, you can find the Talk is Cheap podcast. I'm Ryan Dunleavy. I've been joined by Steve Politi. Stay with us on NJ.com/Giants all off season for coverage of free agency, the NFL draft, and just about anything else that might happen Giants related, including Eli Manning's future. Thanks for joining us.